everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Fran and this is knitting podcast number 3. So today I have one finished object to share with you, 4 works in progress, a very small book update, and then I also wanted to share a little bit about what I'm wearing right now. What I'm wearing right now is my Olga jacket by Petite Knit. This was something I worked on over the summer. I think I started it in June and then finished it around late August. This was my birthday sweater, so I was gifted some money, and this had been kind of in my queue of things I wanted to work on for a while. I went ahead and bought the suggested yarn for it, which is Pure Gint by Santa's Garn, and it's a pretty like rustic wool. It's labeled as a DK weight yarn on some websites, but I would probably say it's a worsted weight yarn. So I did this one in the colors Spiced Apple and Marzipan Fruity Tooty Tweed. I did this in a size extra large. I usually go with extra large with Petite Knits patterns, but if I were to do this one again, I would probably do it in a large. I did gauge swatch and my gauge swatch was fine, but the way the pattern kind of bloomed when it was all together, and I think also with the weight of the project, it definitely was a little bit bigger than what I anticipated. So I really do enjoy wearing it. I've worn it a lot, but I think if I made it again, I would probably make it in a smaller size. I did use the recommended needle size and I didn't have to change any of that, so that was nice. The only modification I made to this sweater is I did probably like 3 or 4 inches shorter on the sleeves. I'm about 5'2", so every project I do is shorter on the sleeves just because I got little arms. With the buttons, I used a bunch of buttons I had laying around and I kind of like cobbled together 6 that looked similar enough. A few years ago, I was like rushing to put buttons on a project and I went to Joann's, and the only thing I found that I liked, or I guess I wasn't finding any individual ones that I liked, so I found this big bag and it was literally labeled a pound of buttons. So I have that stocked away and I have almost a pound of buttons. So I went through there and I found 6 that looked pretty similar, and I would say that they look like they belong to each other, so that's nice. It's a very cozy pattern. I enjoy this one a lot. So that's kind of all I have for my Olga sweater by Petite Knit. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and it is really nice and warm. So my only true finished object for today is something I hadn't started the last video I made. One of the podcasters that I watch a lot is Marlene Knits, and I really enjoy her videos. I really enjoy the projects she chooses. I think I really like the colors and the styles and stuff like that. In her video, she was working on a Bayou beanie, which made me want to make one only because my fiance really likes those short little hats. I don't understand why, but the ones that like go right above the ear, he likes them a lot. So I went ahead and cast one on. This is my Bayou beanie. So this is my Bayou beanie by Witra Design. I'm not sure that I'm saying that correctly. I'm sorry that I'm not. But I really enjoyed the pattern. For this one, I used 2 strands of Knitting for Olive merino wool in Midnight. So it's like a dark, there we go. It's like a dark blue, but it's also got a little bit of gray to it. But I enjoyed the color a lot. My fiance had requested something navy. It's not quite navy, but he did end up liking the color anyway, so I used it anyway. The pattern's pretty simple. I mean, it starts from the cuff, like the bottom. It's 2x2 ribbing, and then you just knit straight up, and then it gives you directions for decreasing towards the center. The decreases went by way faster than I thought they would. So this project took me longer than I thought just because of like gauge things. When I first started it, I started it with the recommended needle size, which was 3.5 millimeters, and I knit like 2 inches of it, and I thought it looked huge, and I kind of forgot that ribbing looks huge until you've done a bit of it, and then it starts to kind of cinch in. So I did not do the responsible thing and gauge swatch first. I just kind of wanted to see how it would turn out. So it looked huge initially. I took it apart. I went down to 3mm needle. I did like another like probably 2-3 inches of the hat, and then realized that was teeny tiny, and my fiance has a very big head. I went back to my original needle size, and with the 3.5 it was actually perfect. It was just that I wasn't patient enough to realize that I was on gauge. It just wasn't showing the way that I expected it to. There are 3 sizes for this pattern, so there's adult small, there's just adult, and then there's adult large. So I knit this one in an adult large. The only thing is that the pattern tells you what size is supposed to fit like a range size of head. It gives you a range of like the small should fit this size head or whatever. I appreciate having that, but I thought it would also have like a schematic or something to tell me like how much I should expect the width to be. Which I understand not having it because sometimes ribbing is hard to gauge, especially because it stretches so much. Maybe it's not something that's necessary, but I had kind of used the gauge calculating that it should be about 8 inches across if I were to lay it kind of flat like this. That worked out just fine, and then once I blocked it, it was really nice, and as you can see, it's already gotten some love. He's already worn it a few times, so that's really nice. But would absolutely recommend this pattern, and I think I'm definitely going to do one again, just because it was a really easy knit and he likes these hats. I'm sure he would absolutely use another one. My first work in progress to share with you today is my Nordic Bloom cardigan by Caitlin Hunter. I've been working on this one for a few weeks now. I'm doing this in a size 4, although I sized up to a size 5 for the sleeves. The recommended needle size is 5.5mm for the colorwork and then 4mm for ribbing and everywhere else. I'm using a Cascade Superwash 220. It's chocolate, and then I think it's called cream for the other color. It's been really, really fun to knit up. This is what I have so far. I'm really happy with how this is working up. The sweater itself was really fast to knit. I think just because it's on a large gauge, it was really, really quick. So it has you work bottom up doing the color work, and then you do 2 separate panels for like the left front, the right front, and then the back, and then you do Kitchener stitch at the shoulder to put those together. I didn't love doing the Kitchener stitch with such a large gauge. It just felt like weird to manage, and I didn't want it to pull and look weird in any places. I'm hoping that it kind of worked out. Now this is already blocked. When I was reading about steeking and that whole process, somebody was saying that you have to block your project first, because if I go through and reinforce with the crochet hook and then do the machine knitting and then try to block it and it does stretch, it's going to be kind of stuck, cinched in. So I went ahead and blocked everything. The sleeves are all done. I ended up doing a size 5 for the sleeves just because when I was picking up the stitches in the way that it was saying, I wasn't getting anywhere close to the recommended amount of stitches for the size 4. So I just went ahead and sized up. I prefer having like a looser sleeve, so that was totally okay with me. So with knitting the button band, I was a little bit confused on how to pick up stitches while I still have like this steeking area going on here. So I just tried to kind of pick up underneath the stitches that were right beside the color work, so that the color work would be right on the edge of the button band. I kind of wished there were a little bit closer instructions for that, but maybe that's something that people can kind of figure out on their own, and I did, so that was totally fine. They recommend doing the buttonholes after 20 stitches, and I ended up doing about 18 between each buttonhole, just because I think mine ended up being a little bit shorter, and I didn't want the top button to be in a weird place. The only reason this is still a work in progress is because I do not have a sewing machine. I can either borrow one, which I have borrowed one before from the Chicago Tool Library. They're like an awesome resource, and I've borrowed one before from them. Or I can wait until the holidays and see if my mom will help me when I go visit her. So she has her sewing machine and she's like way better at managing the sewing machine than I am. I don't think it's my friend. I might just wait for that. For right now, this is kind of just where it's gonna be. There's not a whole lot I can do up until I get access to a sewing machine. So I'm gonna try this on just over what I have on just to kind of show what it's gonna look like. So this is how it's looking right now. I really like the length of the sleeves. They feel like they're pretty cozy, but they don't feel too long. The ribbing kind of makes it to where they don't slide down, so that's really nice. I'm really happy with how tight this part is. Like, it's not tight at all. It's got like a little bit of give, so I can definitely wear a long sleeve underneath it if I want to. But yeah, it's definitely a cropped kind of look. So I would wear it probably with something tucked into jeans, just kind of like I have right now. I'm very excited to get this steeped and finally be able to wear it and probably weave in some ends. Yeah. My next work in progress is the Rosie mittens by Lynette. I've got one done already, so this is what I have. This is my left mitten. So the recommended yarn is either an Essayer Jensen, I think it's called. Essayer, it's a DK weight yarn. Or the other recommendation is Sanisgarn Tin Pure Gint, which is a fingering weight held with tin silk mohair. I have always wanted to work with the tin silk mohair. It's a really expensive mohair in my opinion, or at least for me, like compared to some of the other brands. So I haven't tried it yet. I do really want to make this pattern in those recommended ones because I really like how delicate and like how pretty it looks just with like the fluffy mohair and all of that business. But I was also eager to have some mittens for this winter. So I used actually you can see they're matching. I used my scraps from my Olga sweater. So this is also spiced apple and the marzipan fruity tutti tweed. I know Pure Gint is sometimes labeled as a DK weight yarn. I think it's a little bit thicker. I think it's more comparable to other worsted weight yarns I've worked with. But it's still working out. Like the pattern is still coming along nicely. I haven't woven in these ends yet. It's a little bit chunky, but I'm happy with it because that just means it'll just be a little bit warmer. I made them just a little bit shorter because, again, small hands. The thumb I also had to make about a 1/2 inch shorter, but it's a really easy pattern to modify. That wasn't really much of a problem. I think I am hitting gauge. I'm using the recommended needle size for the ribbing, which was 2.5, and then for the rest of the mitten, I'm using a 3.25 millimeter needle instead of 3.5. That's mainly out of convenience because I already have a small circumference needle for the 3.25 millimeter needles. I did not want to mess with doing color work in magic loop or any other technique like that, so I just went ahead and used a needle size that was a little bit smaller, and I think because the yarn is thicker, it's kind of working out. The fabric is a little bit thicker than the pattern probably intends, but again, I'm okay with that. It's just going to be a warm, cozy mitten, and I get to use my scraps in the process, so that's really nice. So this is how much I have of the right mitten. I'm doing the increases for the thumb right here, and then it's eventually going to split off and then do the color work. Overall, really fun, enjoyable, short little project, and I'm really happy with the finished result of my first mitten. Looking forward to having both of these so that I can keep myself warm this winter. It already started to snow here in Chicago. It snowed this past Monday, and I felt very unprepared. I do have other mittens and things like that, but I was excited to wear some new stuff. This is my first pattern by Lanit, and I've never seen their pattern writing style before. I would say that I wish it were just a little bit more straightforward or just a little bit more detailed. I feel like in the beginning it tells you how to do the tubular cast on and then the double knitting before getting into the ribbing. And then something about how it's listed with like the right side, wrong side, I don't know. I think maybe because I'm not using double pointed needles, it's maybe making like a little bit less sense to me. I'm not sure if it's a me thing. I was hoping that it would just be like a tiny bit more detailed. I think that's just up to the pattern writing. I am still very happy with the pattern so far. It's just like if you're looking for something that's going to tell you exactly word for word and be really, really specific, I don't think this is the pattern. Just because there were a few places where I thought it could have been a little bit more detailed. So moving on to my next work in progress, and the one I'm actually kind of most excited about, is my Marielle blouse by Maria Verdin. I'm not sure that I'm saying her name correctly. I am so sorry if I'm not. But this Marielle blouse I've had my eye on for a while. I really, really love like the pointel lace. It just looks so, so cozy. So last week I went out and bought some knitting for Olive, and I got their merino and their soft silk mohair, both in the color Dusty Violet. So I really, really love this color. It's like a grayish purple. I think it looks a lot more purple than gray, but it's just like a little bit muted. I really like that it's going to be this like kind of flowery open lace, but still not, not super light or bright colors. I'm generally more into like the muted colors. So I'm very, very excited about this Dusty Violet. I bought the sweater quantity that I needed for it, and I've gotten started on the pattern. I did gauge swatch for this pattern, although it is a little bit of a small gauge swatch. For my gauge swatch, I used the recommended needle size, which was the 4mm needle, and I did the 34 stitches across. I only did it one pattern repeat though, just because generally I feel like the width of it is more important than how long it is, because how long it is can always kind of be adjusted. My gauge swatch ended up being right on gauge, so I was really, really happy about that, and that's nice. It opened up just a tiny bit more when I blocked it. So the only thing is that I'm still very, very stuck on what size to do. My bust measurement is about 42 inches, and for these patterns it has you either doing, I think the cutoff is around 40 inches. So I'm looking at either a size 3 or a size 4. The size 3, the finished object is a bust of 47.5 inches. And then the size 4, the finished object is a bust of 52 inches. So either way, I can either have 5 inches of positive ease or 10 inches of positive ease. Now, lately, everything I've made has been bigger than I've wanted it to be. Like, just slightly, never to a point where I have to remake something, but everything I've made in the past couple months has kind of been like, oh, I would have made that just maybe a size smaller, or maybe gone down a needle size or something like that. I have started knitting. Because the pattern starts you off on the back neck and then you start working this trapezoid kind of shape, I don't have to decide the size just yet. I wanted to get some knitting done, so I started the back neck, and this is what I have so far. There we go. Okay, so I'm officially at the point where I have to decide, and then even then I still couldn't decide. I took the needles off and then washed it and left it out to dry, and it did grow about 3 inches. So, oops, go. Originally, this little section I had worked on was about 20 inches across, and after blocking it grew to about 3 inches. And I know that lace kind of compounds, like in that tiny little swatch. I think it's not enough to show how much it's actually going to open up and how much it's actually going to add to the pattern. So because this section is already 23 inches across instead of the 20 that I had before I blocked it, I'm leaning towards doing a size 3 for the pattern. At its smallest, I would have 5 inches of positive ease, but I think I would probably get more just because of like my tendencies and how I've been having my projects end up bigger than I've wanted them to lately. If you have any experience with this pattern, or I don't know, any idea of preference or an opinion even on what you would think, I would love to hear it, just because I am kind of stuck. I really think I'm leaning towards doing a size 3 and hoping that it opens up the way I want it to. I just don't want it to look too baggy and too oversized. So if you have any opinions, I would really appreciate them. But overall, the fabric itself is really, really pretty. I think I'm just nervous to pick the wrong size because it is mohair, and I know taking it apart is just not going to be an option. When it's done, it's going to be done. I'm very, very excited to keep working on it. Just need to decide what size, and then I will continue. But it's been really, really fun to work on so far. My last work in progress is more of a book update again. So this is my Sophie shawl, which I've already shown twice, but we have had progress. So we're past the midway point, which is here. Yeah, there we go. We're past the midway point, and I've already started doing the decreases again. The big issue with this is that I had initially bought 3 balls of yarn, and then I was going back and forth on like, am I going to use all of them? How am I going to do this? And I ended up losing the 3rd ball of yarn. I have no idea where it went. My best guess is that I threw it in my car, and then I might have opened a door and it rolled out and I didn't notice, so maybe my poor yarn is like stuck in a gutter somewhere. I don't know. I was making so much progress. I was super, super excited to try to finish it, to wear it for when we had the snow, and I couldn't find my last ball of yarn. So finally yesterday I went to go buy my last ball of yarn, and this is going to be my project for the day. I'm going to go sit down with my book and finish it out because I do not have very much left. It is just this and the decreases going up. I'm doing this on 5.5 millimeter needles, and I ended up with 60 stitches at its widest. So when I measured it at halfway, the length of it is probably going to end up being the length of the medium size, but it is the width of the large. I knew I was going to have some weird gauge things with using a thicker yarn, but I'm okay with it. I'm very happy with how cozy it is, and I'm really hoping to finish this out today now that I finally bought that and replaced that ball of yarn that I lost, which I was very upset about it. I am sure that as soon as I finish this project, that ball of yarn is going to materialize. So if it does, it does. And I don't know what I'll do with it, but we'll figure it out. So the small book update is that I have abandoned Hello Beautiful. I just couldn't do it. It was available to me again. Every time I opened it up, I was just not excited to read it. I just couldn't get back into it. So unfortunately, I abandoned Hello Beautiful. But I did start a new book called Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I've read one of her books before and enjoyed it. It's, again, like short mystery thriller kind of situation. It is a lot of slow reveal and just waiting for the next kind of twist. So I'm about 60% of the way through the book, and like I said, I'm going to today dedicate a lot of time to just finishing this shawl and finishing my book, hopefully, because I'm ready to be done with this project and I'm ready to start wearing it, and the weather is starting to get cold enough for me to actually wear it. So I'm excited, but hopefully this will be kind of the last of the Sophie shawl for a while. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had something fun to be knitting on or working on in the meantime. Let me know what you're working on in the comments if you are willing to share. I always love kind of seeing what everybody is working on. So thank you again so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.